Welcome to The Quick Fix, a series that gives you wellness tips that are founded in research and that are practical and easy to apply in your life right now. These are short episodes that focus on all aspects of wellness: physical, emotional, mental, spiritual, financial, professional, and personal. The goal is to help you and I to live lives that are healthy and soaked with meaning and purpose. So let's get going. I'm not good enough. I'm a loser. I'm not smart. I'm ugly. I really don't have any talents. I'm not worthy of love. I'm a bad person. I'm fat. I'm stupid. I'm not complete. I'm damaged goods. I'm not clean inside. These beliefs that there is something wrong with me, with who I am as a being, is called shame. Welcome to this episode where we explore something that we never ever speak about. But as coaches, many of us work with clients as they struggle through these beliefs. This is the way they see themselves. Therefore, it's important for us to understand what shame is and how we can support our clients to reprogram these beliefs and minimize the limiting impact it can have on us. As human beings, you and I might also struggle from these beliefs, and so this episode can bring deep healing for us too. When it comes to shame, I am an expert. Personally, I have battled many shame beliefs all my life and know the crushing power of these beliefs. Shame really limits us from living life king size. So my intention in this episode is to help you and your clients start the journey to deal with these shame beliefs. So this episode is very personal to me. It's my story. And before we move on, remember, please do subscribe to this channel and share this episode with people in your circle of influence. I'm sure they will benefit too. So let's start. Many of us battle shame, and often this is an intensely personal battle that we fight alone and spend a lifetime losing continually. For some of us, these feelings are triggered at critical times, and for others, it becomes a part of our identity that limits everything that we do. And if you've been body shamed, then this goes to a whole new level. For me, areas of shame have included being body shamed, being called fatty most of my life, being called short all of my life, and struggling with the belief that I'm really not smart because I'm not good at math. According to Brené Brown, shame is the intensely painful feeling or experience of believing that we are flawed, and therefore unworthy of love and belonging. And many of us don't see it because we camouflage it so well. We hide it being busy or buying stuff or exhausting ourselves for artificial medals like that big promotion or that new car or big house or external affirmation. Wow, the head office loves me, or he loves me, or she loves me. Just to clarify, guilt is I did something bad. And shame is I am bad. Personally, I see both as two sides of the same coin or very closely intertwined and intimately connected. So understanding it a bit more, according to Brené Brown, at its very essence, shame is really the fear of disconnection. The fear of disconnection, the fear of feeling unworthy to be accepted by others whom we care about or whose acceptance we crave for. And the latest research on brain science tells us that the pain of social rejection and disconnection is real pain. There's no difference as the brain triggers physical pain or this emotional pain of social rejection and disconnection. Which is why we do our best to hide shame, because it's real pain. So where does this feeling of shame come from? Where does it come from? How does it start? Why is it that it becomes such an integral part of who I am, our identity, right at the very essence for so many of us? Well, it comes from the core defect story. The core defect story that we've learned or we've been told right from our very, 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 very early years. Most of us and many of our clients too will have a core defect story. And this core defect story is what we tell ourselves to help us deal with the emotional pain in our life. This core defect story is often played at a subconscious level. It impacts the way we relate and interact with people today. Thus, not being assertive, not having the confidence to interact with authority figures, not being able to speak up, feeling inadequate, not having confidence, not feeling good enough. Many of these undercurrents flow because of the core defect story that plays deep within us. Not dealing with shame is dangerous because in addition to the way it limits us, as I said above, it's highly correlated with addiction, violence, aggression, depression, eating disorders, and bullying. So we need to learn to deal with shame. Whether we need to be able to support our clients, and before our clients, we need to start working on ourselves if we are struggling with areas of shame. So how do we start this healing process? What do we start? Where do we start? Number one, recognize shame for ourselves and understand its triggers. Recognize shame and understand its triggers. Shame is biology and biography. Biology and biography. So we need to be able to first recognize when we're in its grip, and we need to be able to feel our way through it. For most of us, it would be one or two key areas that we probably know and are very familiar with it. And it is through these areas we can trace back to the core defect story that was its genesis. So for example, I believe I'm not intelligent because I'm not good at math. And I believe this because my dad was brilliant and I couldn't meet his expectations of math performance. So it was just easier to hide my story behind the fact that, or belief that I'm really not very smart. And the story that I'm really not smart was also an easier way to deal with the pain of seeing his disappointment in his eyes when I was not able to perform well in competitive exams. So we need to be able to recognize the shame and the triggers that it has on us and how it makes us feel in our present moment. Next step is to start practicing awareness. Start practicing awareness. Once we are aware of the core defect story and how it triggers these shame messages, we need to check the truth of these messages in our context today. Most of these voices are old, outdated, and may not often be valid. Be aware of this. Be aware that these are unmet expectations of voices in your life that may not be part of your current reality. The truth is that some of these messages may not be true, or that you've done well in life despite these messages. So we need to be aware and start practicing awareness around this. Practice being mindful of when the shame messages are triggered and how they make you feel. Just be aware of it. In my own life, I realized while doing my master's that numerical intelligence was just one of the many intelligences that were there. Though in India, that is considered the main way to rank people. And while I did not have numerical intelligence, I did have very strong linguistic intelligence and even emotional intelligence. So after many, many years of work with my own life coach and counselor, it's now easier for me to accept that while my dad was certainly disappointed that I was not good in one area of my life, I know that there are many, many areas that I'm really very, very good at. And leveraging my strengths here have helped me do well. Number 3, we need to own our shame story and reach out and share it. Our first tendency is to hide behind shame, to hide in a corner, cover it, sweep it under the carpet because we are ashamed of it, right? It makes us feel flawed. It makes us feel unworthy. So the best way is to start to work with a life coach or a counselor who can understand and support you as you work through these shame beliefs. Connecting and sharing this with someone who can support you helps us experience empathy, and empathy starts the healing process. It helps us see that what we feel is part of our human existence, that we are really not alone, that we are not the only person in the world who's feeling this way. In my own life, working with a coach and a counselor at various points in time, almost the last decade, has helped me share and process the various facets of my core defect story. So when you feel shame, reach out to someone you trust and speak out what you feel. Seek help through this process, which is why a trained life coach or a counselor is possibly the best way for one to deal with it. He or she will give you the time and the space to experience processing it, talking about it, and then support you with validation and acknowledgement and affirmation and affection. Ask them for what you need to make you feel whole, or for them to help you see the complete truth, the full picture, not the small distorted piece that you are probably holding on to. Number 4 is to look at the data of your core defect story within the wider context. Understand why the key stakeholders, when you started so early in life, why these key stakeholders had these expectations of you. What was at the essence of what they wanted? How did their own life story mold them? Place the pain you feel within this larger reality and look at your stakeholders and yourself with compassion and forgiveness. And forgiveness is integral to healing from shame. And in the work that I've done, I've had to look at my dad's expectations, the context that he had in mind in terms of career options, what he wanted from me, and therefore why numerical intelligence was so important. And when I've done that work, and when I now look at where I am today, I'm able to see that, okay, perhaps the route that he wanted me to take didn't happen, but I've done well despite that. And if he were to see me today, he would be very, very proud of me. There would not be disappointment in his life. Now, to be able to say this, to be able to believe this, to be able to understand this has taken a lot of time and work for me. So it's a process that requires one to be patient and compassionate with yourself. And once we cultivate enough awareness about shame to name it and speak it, we've basically cut it off at its knees. So gentleness, compassion, forgiveness is all part of healing from shame. And each one of us will have a very, very different story. So this is not something that can, be easily looked at with a 3-step process. But the steps that I've discussed with you so far are very, very integral to the journey that you can start. So as I bring this episode to a close, what I'd like to say is working with someone you trust helps you recognize your core defect story, put it in a larger context, reframe it, and move you towards compassion and forgiveness towards self and others. Recognizing and releasing that old shame story and writing a new one helps us overcome many of the deeper challenges and inadequacies that we face in our relationships and interactions. It's a difficult journey, I know, but it's really, really worth it. I can attest to it. So I wish you well. There is no reason for you to live with shame. You can really, really deal with it and be free. And that's it for today. Thank you for listening. Please connect with us on coachtoolbox@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. And don't forget to follow, subscribe, and review this channel. Details of our ICF-approved coach training programs and our services as executive coaches and coaching supervisors are on www.globalcoachtrust.org. See you in our next session.